concentrated. They'll buy this one-goal lead. Here's a shot. Wregget. Again, John, you pointed out.
Pretty good on this rush to Gilmore. Gilmore getting right in. And he backhands the puck to Wregget. Gilmore rolled it in. Great chance for Reeves. And he lost it. With Lemieux carrying in. Dropped into Hunter. Hunter can't shoot from that angle. Centered it. Right in there. Oh, a great chance for Bourgeois. He missed it in. Back for the Blues. Trailing by a goal. Wregget kicked it out. Another shot. Wregget kicked it out. Another shot off his skate. Wregget made two biggies. Right.
Here's the rebound right out to Evans. He shoots it. It's on the money. Wregget makes the save with his left foot.
Goaltender stymies the Blues again.
Wregget make a save here on young Ronning with his right foot. Ronning knows how to score goals, I can tell you that. He scored in every league he's been in.
Wregget has his shutout, and the Leafs have advanced, winning the series.
In the crease. Ago as a Philadelphia Flyer, he enhanced his celebrity by leaving a pair of NHL greats. Given a shot to replace Ron Hextall, Wregget has calmly rejected 72 of 74 shots he's seen.
Wregget was out, and LaValle, I'll tell you, have that far corner labeled, and Wregget got...
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another very special episode of the 1973 podcast. I'm so happy to have this man on the podcast this week. Former NHL goalie, Stanley Cup champion, Ken Wregget from our Philadelphia Flyers and other teams, but we'll get to that. We'll all get to that. Yeah. So, Ken, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you spending time with the guys and telling stories and, talking about your career and what you got going on. And we always say, hopefully by the end of the episode, be a friend of the show. So,
yeah. Yep, thank you very much for having me on there. It's very nice. We talked a little bit earlier about the love of the game and everybody's love and passion of the game, and that's why your listeners are here as well. And very happy and honored to be on here and help spread some of the greatness about hockey and some good stories, hopefully.
So we always start off by taking us all the way back to the youth and telling us how the journey started with getting involved and how the goaltending came about.
For Ken Wregget as a youth, you've been talking way back.
Ken Wregget as a youth.
I'd love to bring that up. Going into next weekend on the 25th, the Saturday, in Kingston, Greenwood area of Nova Scotia, where I grew up and started playing hockey, and went from like a forward, captain, heavy goal scorer of the team, to all of a sudden being 10 years old, coming across a pair of skates, old size 6 CCMs, at a swap meet on the way home from an on-base movie when Dad was in the Air Force, and I decided to play goal that day. And I asked my dad if I could turn to goaltending, and that's where my days went. Anyways, I'm going there this next Saturday on the 25th. They have an induction into their first inaugural Sports Hall of Fame in that area. So for me, it's a full circle all the way back around. And out there in Nova Scotia, we won the merit or the provincials, which is like the states, three consecutive times. And the Maritimes, which is Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, kind of a tri-state area, we won that 2 consecutive times. And that was unheard of for an Air Force base and off-base community. And it's still going great right now. So we had to go down there and meet Wayne McPherson, Donnie Hislops, and my old coaches and stuff, and that come around. But that's where it all started for me. And from there, everything just took off. I started off as as a forward, then kind of went to defenseman, then went back as a goaltender at 10 years old. And by the time I turned 18, I was playing junior hockey in Lethbridge, Alberta, and a very good team with World Cup with John Chapman and the Lethbridge Broncos. The Sutter Loney was their top line there. Some great hockey nostalgia for everybody. And that was 1982. Went to, I guess the year before, went to the Memorial Cup, but that was our draft year for most of the guys. And we had Cedar Certaloni, myself, Randy Moeller, Vern Smith, Gerald Diddick. I'm missing some guys there, but we had a heck of a team. And then I started this hockey career in Toronto. And that was a dream come true. First goalie drafted in 1982 in the world. Mind you, back then there's communism was around. It was Czechoslovakia and the USSR. So to get across the border, it's a little bit different. So that was interesting. A lot of hockey history, and had the opportunity to play through in the NHL through the 80s with all the excitement of the 200-point. Top lit, not five guys in the league, not that many, but guys were getting 100 goals, and Wayne Gretzky and the Oilers were pumping, and you had the Islanders were coming off their dynasty, and in the middle of it, and it was some great hockey coming up, and I came in Toronto, which was not one of the best teams in the world, but we worked hard. We had five rookies with us that year, two rookie goaltenders, much like the Penguins this year. Outside of Jagr, mind you. But I mean, just a rebuilding year, and my first year we won five. I won 5 games between the St. Catherine Saints and Toronto Maple Leafs, and that's out of 40 games played. Moved along to our favorite place, Philadelphia, and was there 3 years. Had a chance to go up against playoffs against Lemieux and the boys in '89 when I first got there, and I can't bring that up in Pittsburgh because those fighting words out here, and I live there. This is my home, and I love it to death. And Philly and Pittsburgh, and Pennsylvania is a great state too, and you got to love the rivalry and the passion. And I got a good first game story there as well for you when you get into it. But played 3 years there, came down to Pittsburgh, won the Cup '92, spent 6 years here, went off to Calgary, then spent back in that era, went to Detroit after that, and I knew I was winding down at that point, 35 years old. Second year in Detroit, went to Manitoba Moose. I was born in Brandon, Manitoba, and Manitoba Moose were in Winnipeg, so that was kind of neat being back home type of thing, and again, full circle. So hockey's been a big part of my life, and like I said earlier, I love getting on the air with you guys and sharing it with you, and telling you about all those days and all the times. And there's a lot of good times, and blood, sweat, and tears through the time, 3 years.
So let's after the youth hockey and playing goalie, we always ask this story about, do you have any good draft stories from getting drafted? Because we've had a few really good ones.
Yeah, I got a great one, and I get the chance to tell this next weekend too. I was sitting with my billet family, the Redmonds, Bruce and Bernice Redmond in Lethbridge, Alberta, and this is 1982, and I mentioned the team to you guys earlier. And the night before the draft, Bruce said to me, Bernice and I were sitting there having dinner. I think we're having a nice steak dinner too at that point. And Bruce said, "Everything aside, what do you think's going to happen tomorrow?" He goes, "You think you'll get drafted?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I'll get drafted." I said. He goes, "What round do you think you'll go in? If you think, he's asked me all the questions. What round do you think you'll go in?" I said, "I think I'll go in the 3rd round." I said. He asked me why. And I said, well, third round, because I knew a guy that in my area, my neighborhood, that was a pretty good goalie, and he was drafted. He played for Regina Pats. I can't remember who he was drafted by off this hand, but he was in the 5th round. And I said, he's a good goalie. And I said, I think I'm a little bit better goaltender than he is. And I said, so I think I'll get drafted in the 3rd round. And he goes, oh, interesting. He goes, what about the team? Is there a team you want to go to? Or do you think, what's your feeling on a team? And I said, well, I think I'm going to go to the Toronto Maple Leafs. And he goes, really? He goes, why is that? And I go, well, I said, in grade, I'm not sure what grade it would be. It was somewhere like 6, 7 in that area. I get thrown into detention for one of the terrible things a person can do in class. I was laughing too much. So when I went there, the teacher's named Donnie Hyslop, which I'll see him next weekend as well. He introduces me to the detention staff as the next All-Star goaltender for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I said, so I think I'll get drafted by the Toronto Maple Leafs for that reason. So he kind of laughed about it. We had dinner, went to bed and all that, finished the night. The next morning, it was June, I think it was June 9th or something during the week. And back then, all the players never went up to the draft. If you're in that area, and I think the predominant draft was area location Toronto, Maple Leaf Gardens or Montreal, but I think Toronto. And the Ontario League guys, they had a pretty good chance. There's a lot of places were a lot closer, so they would go down. But not everybody went. Like it's not a big production like it was. So we're sitting down in the morning again, having breakfast, and I just before we went to school, 3 hour time change, 2 hour actually. The phone rings and Bernice answers the phone. She goes, Ken, is it for you? So I get up, I get the phone and yeah, hang up. And so I start eating breakfast. Bruce looks at me and he goes, all right, so what happened? He goes, you get drafted? I said, yeah. I said, that was my agent. I said, they're going to call me later. I said, but yeah, I got drafted. So then he looks at me and he goes, who drafted you? And I go, Toronto. He goes, really? He goes, what round? I go, yep, third round. That's right. So in a way that happened, that happening back, that many years earlier, take a good 10 years in the 70 years, and for that to happen, that was pretty unique, very, very special.
So do you have a going to training camp story with meeting an NHL system and the NHL team for the first time? Was it a culture shock?
Yeah, well, being a goalie, we're the guys staying at the end of the ice, kind of not paying attention to systems and stuff like that. So for me, the biggest thing was just being geeked out about playing with these guys. Because again, going to tournaments when I was a kid in Somerset, Prince Edward Island, we're at the Billet family, which is typically the player on the other team. And on his door was all the hockey cards of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and Borje Salmi's right there. Then all of a sudden you're on the ice, and he's like your defenseman. It's like crazy. Your goalie coach is Johnny Bauer all of a sudden. So I got a question. I played a game, and the guy's coming down the wing on me, cuts across. I don't know the best way to handle it. Your defenseman's backing up. This guy's down deep, and how best to play it. And Johnny says to me, he goes, I remember Frank Mahovlich coming down the wing. And he's talking about diving out, and I could just see him with no helmet on, diving out. And it was like, yeah, that's a great story. But things are a little different. But I'm going to stop that puck regardless. It was awesome.
So before we get too deep into the talking Leafs, I want to get Ed and Tom involved in some questions. Ed, up to this point, question for Ken.
Sure, Ken. When did you know that that you were going to get picked, or did any scouts talk to you, or did you have anything like that happen to you before when you were playing juniors and Quebec majors and that type of thing? Did you have anybody talk to you, say, hey, you have a chance to go to the show?
Well, no, never really talked to anybody like that. The closest thing to something like that would be our agents, who was at that point was Bill Waters and Rick Kern with Bernata Sports. And when they start, when your coach is saying you need to start thinking about an agent because some people are asking about you, you kind of. I don't necessarily know how things are now, but that's they're obviously a lot more technical, I's dotted and T's crossed type of thing. Where back then it was a little bit more loose, but the foundation was laid down there. So they let us know that it's probably a good idea. So you slowly started to get word, and you'd see in the news, and the reporters would be asking you. They'd be on the Associated Press, no internet and all that stuff back then. Yeah.
Tom, question for Ken.
Sure. I believe your first game with the Leafs was against Hartford, right? What was going through your head your first game? And you had an incredible game, if I'm correct. You had 48 saves. So what was going through your head?
What was going through my head was before the game, Billy Lego, John Anderson, and Rick Vive, which is our number one top line, which competed in the NHL for top lines. They're very good. They're funny guys too. Sorry. They're joking around before the game, and I'm a nervous guy as it is, right? So, and I'm playing my first game, called up out of junior in Hartford, in the dressing room before the game. They're joking around, and one of the guys says to the other guy, Dick Lego, Johnny Anderson, says, "Stop 50, kid, and we'll win." They're all laughing, and that's the last thing I wanted to hear. So as the game was going on, I started to count the shots, but Ed Staniowski at the other side, he wasn't having a great night, and we're able to get, I think it was 8 past him, and 6 went in on me, and yeah, 54 shots or 48 saves or something like that. But it was in the win column. That was the main thing.
Absolutely. Nobody remembers anything but the win.
That's right. First game was a win.
That's right.
Ken, I got a question. Did you have a welcome to the NHL moment? Like maybe somebody gave you some crap, or was there any rookie hazing back then, like you saw in the movie Youngblood?
No, not really hazing. I remember at training camp, they gave me the nickname Mikey because I went in to get camp at like 192 and I was like 198 or something after 2 weeks. Usually you lose weight. So Billy Lego was skating behind me in practice one day with a stick, skate lace, and a donut hanging on it. And I caught that. I ended up in the newspaper, one of the Toronto papers type thing. It was, but that was never really any big hazing other than just always a hard time from the older guys, like to bug you a little bit.
Toronto gets a hard time now with the curse from '67 and everything, but they've always had iconic players, and even when you're sent with the Leafs, they had a really good team. It's just amount of getting over that hump. Wendell Clark, it's just crazy.
Yeah, no, it is. It's the hockey capital, I think, of North America. There's a lot of focus on it, and there is. When I was there, we're in Maple Leaf Gardens, and Kane Clancy, and Harold Ballard were around there, and it was like all the hockey gods. There was magic in that building. There was magic when the puck was coming around the boards. There's just something special about that. We're Toronto, we've had good guys, good teams, and you just wish we could have done a little bit better. Like when I think when I was there, we had the 85, 86 here. We're a couple times in there we got beat out the 7th game of the second round. Had we just how close were we? We were at the point where our youth was now our carrying player, but we never had, as a youth, we never had that top level of players. I look at Pittsburgh now; they got a nice they got a nice nucleus of younger players, and they got Sidney Crosby and they got Malkin right there, and it's like they I know if I was down there, I'd be looking up at these guys and. It's like what do you need me to do? Well, of course, I learned that along the way in my playing hockey for 17 years that you got to work together and to have that opportunity where in Toronto we never really had that, and then I think that maybe hurt us a little bit. But in a way, we should have been able to get it on ourselves, and we did our best. We really did. It wasn't easy, and everybody loves Toronto, and I had tears in my eyes coming down the escalator after seeing the posters and stuff, and yeah, your first team, and you wish you did better. That was my goal was to win the cup in Toronto. Absolutely.
So the departure from Toronto, how did that all come about?
Departure from Toronto, probably if you look at my career stats in a flash note, it would have been the right thing to do for the management at that point. It could have very easily been justified letting me go, because I was told at that time that they weren't doing, they couldn't help me anymore, and that they felt they could to help my career would be to move on at that point. And if you really think about it, that's pretty candid. And I appreciated that. And because they gave me to Philadelphia, they gave me to a team that half the shots, I get half the shots they had defense. They gave me to a team that could utilize me, could do well. Now they had at that point they had Hextall and they had Pete Peters, and then I show up for 2 first-round draft picks. So the fans, as you know, they're looking at, well, we got these 2 guys, Hextall, Peters. Why do we need Wregget? And oh my God, look what we gave up for them all of a sudden. So as we were talking about before the show, I got a great first story for you guys. And that was I played my first game as a Flyer was in Boston. I believe it was the night before, and I got pulled after 2 periods because I was exhausted. I was just getting off mono at that point, but it wasn't. I hadn't played for a month type thing. And my second game I played, which was my first home game in Philadelphia, was against Toronto, and I believe it was an afternoon game. And I know, like I said earlier, I get nervous, and playing against your old team, I'd never really quite experienced that before. So here I was, and I probably one of the more nervous times I got. So after the first period, I think it was 5-0, we're winning. So I'm thinking, okay, good. I know better to get excited about anything. So I think, okay, all I gotta do is maintain. I'm like the golfer coming down the back 9 after a lead, right? All you gotta do is not get the sand trap, or not get in the water, not in the rough, just down the middle. Well, halfway through the second period, roughly somewhere, the goal goes in. It's 5-5. So if you remember this, let me know. So the face-off's over at 5-5. We're lining up for the face-off at center type thing. Then over the net, over the glass at this point. So being in Philadelphia, and I got my Philly gear on. I play for the Philadelphia Flyers, first game ever. 5-5. Off comes the wax paper cup of Coke in it, large. Back, boom, right in the back of the head. Perfect shot. Splatter right in the middle of the ice. Like it's like, wow, there's my moment right there. It's like, yeah, boy, this is gonna be fun. I can just tell. So we ended up winning the game. So there's your W again. Good stuff. so that I can't remember what we're talking about, but that was my first game anyway. So
Welcome to Philly.
Yeah. Oh, I know. So it was like, wow, how was it? So that was my first game when I came over. So now that's 89. Now later on that year, we're playing Pittsburgh in the second round, and that's when they're just up and coming and stuff. And Ronnie goes down in the second period, or he goes down when he goes down in game 5. It's when Robbie Brown scored. And does and he's chasing. Actually, chasing him up the board. So I'm on the bench and I'm standing and I'm looking over at the trainer, kind of chuckling a little bit because it was funny. And then Holmgren looks down the bench at me. Ray, you're in. I'm like, oh shit. Get my stuff on. Get out there. Off on the ice I go. And the scores up there pretty good. It was up there. So and the game was getting exciting. So I don't know. At some point, well, I just say before that happened in the first period, about 4 minutes left, they ended up pulling Hexy because we were losing 4-0 or something, and I go in for the period. Think I'm starting the second. They start the game over, put Hexy in. I'm on the bench again. Then Robbie Brown does that. Then So now the flash forward into the Hextall comes out in the second. I go in. That's after Robbie Brown was chasing him. So it's later in the third period now, and the game's up there. It's like 8-6, 9-7. I don't know, something ridiculous at that point. 5-on-3 breaks out. It's getting chippier than anything, right? Keith Actis taking the face off just outside. I'm playing for Philly. I'm just outside the face off on the blocker side on my right hand side. 5-on-3. Keith Actis taking the face off. Well, the whole building knows. The ref knows. Everybody knows. Puck, I don't even think hits the ice. The sticks are going, but it gets into it. 5-on-3. I got to come out. The tough guy for Pittsburgh, it wasn't Caulfield. Starts with a B. Bogner
Baumgartner?
No, we'll think of it. But he grabs a hold of me, and next thing he's like going to town on me, black eye, fat lip, lose my jersey, arm pads, and everything, and get all that out. I get kicked out of the game. Hextall's got to come back in the game again. The fans are going nuts, and so that's game 5. So now game 7 comes around, and it's after the morning skate. That I find out that I'm playing that Hexie's got a bad knee. So now I'm sitting there and like I'm nervous. It's like, oh boy, here we go. So I'm under the stands. And I'm talking to to Turk. He's the equipment guy, and I say, boy, I says, this. We're talking about the game, and he goes, when you're a kid, he goes, this is what you dream of, to have opportunities like this. I looked at him and I go, you know what? Yeah, you're right. And that kind of settled me in right there. I got a hold of Mark Howe, and I said, Howie, I said, for me to go in like this, as opposed in contrast to Hextall, you got 2 different guys. And so I kind of went over that. So he goes, hang on right here. We got the defensive coach. We got the defenseman. We had a little powwow. We would have it anyways. So I said, I'm not, we got it. And I said, I told the guys, I said, I can't play the point on power play. I'm not going to be able to get the puck. I said, you guys are going to have to do things. We got to adjust because it's not going to be the same as Hexie. It's just not going to be the same. We're 2 different goaltenders, 2 different styles. We're both good goalies, but we don't play the same style when it comes to puck handling. So that was cleared all the way. So one of the guys, I think it might have been Howie, said, just stop the first shot. We'll take care of the rest. So if you think about that, that's like, keep it simple. Just stop the puck. That's it. We got the rest. That is the goalie's job. That's his sole job. Just stop the first one. Don't worry about all the other stuff. Puck's going there. Puck's going there. So just as long as we understood that, we knew what to expect from each other rather than learn it after 2 goals to win in the first period. So we got on the same page. So that's basically all I did. And then the guys played well. I think Pittsburgh was a little bit overconfident too, because it was a game time decision. Hexie wasn't there, and he was that much of an impact. When he did play and the puck went in the corners, if you're offensive, you play that a little different than if Ken Wregget goes back there. They used to call me the traffic cop because I couldn't do that, but I would point where to go. Gotta do work and let you got, right?
Well, I got to ask you, Ken, because being a huge Flyers fan, what's your favorite Ron Hextall story?
Ron Hextall, he was a very intense guy. He's a guy that if anything about Hextall, I don't have any really really good stories, in the sense that he was always so intense that when he dropped one pad off and got in his game mode, you probably heard this from those guys around there talking about him more on a regular basis. But he not. I don't think I did play with anybody in the NHL that it was that intense when he got ready to play. I knew when he got on the ice, he played with a lot of emotion. I knew that, but I never played with him until I played with him. But he was one of the nicest guys. I was excited him getting here when he got here, that being in Philadelphia or in Pittsburgh as GM. because he does everything he does to win. I don't think he had a really good shake at things. It wasn't really the team that he was suited for at that point. But, he's a great guy. He brought a lot to the game of hockey. His family's brought a lot to the game of hockey. He's very well respected in the Pittsburgh area with his brothers and uncles. And he's just a really class guy. I was lucky to have the opportunity to play with him. I actually, when I was in junior, I was on Brandon's list, protective list. And they had to get it traded from, they being Lethbridge, had to get traded from Brandon Wakings to go over there to get my rights to play in Lethbridge, because I was looked at and I was out playing junior B at that time. And Gary Sutter, the seventh Sutter brother, saw me, and they recommended that, try to get a hold of this guy. So they let me go, and one of the reasons, was it Hexie was a hometown guy. That made perfect sense. He was a phenom. And my dad, how he got me from back then in Cold Lake, Alberta, like I mentioned, in Nova Scotia, but we lived in Alberta as well, Cold Lake. So when I was out there after Nova Scotia, I was around 13, 14, he wanted to get me some exposure. This is again before the internet. So he sent me to Dunk McCollum's hockey school in Brandon, Manitoba. I worked in Oak Lake, Manitoba, about an hour and a half outside of Brandon on my cousin's farm, Stan Rampton. And that's what I meant by full circle. But out there, after I worked there this summer, I went to Dunk McCollum's hockey school. And when I was out there, they saw me at the hockey school, and they brought me on to the rookie camp. And then the following year, they brought me to rookie camp, and then kept me on to main camp. So that's when they put me there, and they had to let me go because of the Ronnie Hextall. Ronnie Hextall was at one of the camps, and here we are. We got on the ice and skated and did our thing. They went on shifts. Went on a separate shift. And here's this goalie. After we get done, we go sit in the stands and watch the next group of guys going out there. Well, here's this goalie skating around. He's shooting the puck up off the glass, and just amazing shot. We're kind of, this is back in 1980 or 81. Might have been 79, but right in that era. So this kid was shooting the puck around this glass, this goalie with his glove on, unheard of back in those days. Just a sniper on it. And that's when I said, what's he going to do? I don't play point on the power play. That's where I first heard that, because look at this guy. He could play the point on the power play. He could shoot the puck. And we're all laughing about him. That was Ron Hextall back in 79, 80 when he was in Bantam, or maybe midget type of thing. So he made a big impact in Manitoba, in Brandon, as well as in the NHL. It was a great honor to have the opportunity to play with him in Philadelphia.
So before we get into the Pittsburgh years, I'm going to have Ed and Tom do a round of questions. Ed, question for Ken.
Ken, who was the hardest shot that you faced, and then who was the scariest guy that came and walked in on you?
The hardest shot I ever faced happened was the first time I mentioned this was in Toronto. They had they were interviewing me one day, like on a Sunday after Hockey Night in Canada. And what I thought, who was the hardest shot? And I said, Al Iafrate. They said, what about Al McGinnis? I said, I see Al in the mornings. We live together. I know when he's a bad mood when he comes down and shoots on me. I said, he could kill me. I said, I don't know if he can shoot 110, but I think it's the hardest shot I ever faced. And that was the one he did skate into the puck, and he did win the fastest shot too. And I'll learn on that because I faced him quite a few times in practice. And sometimes when you're that young, the puck does get away from you. Thank goodness he never did hit me in the head. What was the second question?
I have to say, who was the guy that him breaking in on you? Who was like, oh no, here we go.
Joe Sakic. He had my number every time. It was just almost, for me, it was impossible. Like Barrow and Wayne and guys like that, you pretty much relinquish your shot yourself that's going to go in. If you do stop it, you're feeling pretty good. But Joe Sakic, he could always just somehow just get it by in there when you think you have him. He just never stopped him until you think he can. Yeah, he always did that to me.
Tom, question for Ken.
Sure. As a young player coming in the league, did you have a teammate that kind of took you under their wing and show you how to act and prepare as a pro?
Like I said, we didn't the first couple of years in Toronto, we didn't quite really have that. I did in the sense for Chris Kasopoulos and Phil in Toronto and Al, I figure he probably is right in there with me because Al and I lived together, and there was Todd, but I Chris always seemed to be the guy because we lived somewhat close. We traveled together. I could talk to him. He was able to settle me down and make sense out of how things went for me. He was like the big brother the big brother in the hockey world for me that I respect. I still keep in touch with him. I don't see him near as much as I'd like to, but hopefully I see him pretty soon. But for me, it was Chris Kasopoulos.
So, Ken, you got to take us through how you left the city of brotherly love for a chance at a Stanley Cup run.
Yeah, that was a tough one. Russ Farwell, the year before, he had asked me what I thought about going to Pittsburgh, and I said I don't want to go to Pittsburgh. And he said, how come? Why wouldn't you want to go to Pittsburgh? They're an up and coming team. They got this and that. And I said, well, I know how I sit here, and I know I can still games off Hextall. I know I'm a better goaltender than he is. And so he kept me that year, and I got to say we didn't quite see eye to eye a whole lot. But I was there the 1 year. The second year we went to arbitration. I believe Ronnie got injured for quite a few games, and I played more games. And I was going for like I don't know what it was at that point. It wasn't anything. It was about I don't know, maybe a $50,000 raise, which was probably in the 20-some% range, which back in those days was pretty good. And I think they gave Ronnie like $500,000 raise. But that's the way things were, and he was that goaltender that made that much of a difference. And I didn't. I was a good backup. I filled in nicely for him. I'm very grateful I had that opportunity. So that's it. So and then when it did come, I was a little bit on the surprise. I was getting traded, but at the same time, I knew there were we had missed playoffs as well. It was time I moved on, and that was shortly after that Game 7 that I did play as well. And I guess maybe Pittsburgh felt to be a good idea if I came along.
So you get to Pittsburgh, and there's some familiar faces there. Rick Tocchet's there, right?
Talk's there. Craig Berube's there. I mentioned the goalies: Timmy Kerr, Craig Poulin, Gord Murphy, Chris Tamer. I'm going to miss Chris Tamer, Terry Karkner. I mean, there's a very solid team. I think a couple of years before that they had gone up against Edmonton in the Stanley Cup. Not too much before that, so they had a very strong team. So, like I said, going there from Toronto, you're almost cutting your shots in half right there. But what you got to remember, like we may have only had like up teens, low 20 shots compared to Toronto in the 40s to sometimes low 50s. But when you only got those 16 shots coming in, they're high quality shots or high probability chance for if you get to 50 some shots, you probably got 3 or 4 between the blue line and the red line.
So take us to Pittsburgh. You get there, and they had already won that first Stanley Cup. Thoughts on the difference between coming from Philly, going to Pittsburgh across the state?
First off, I didn't fully understand the rivalry that they had going on. I apologize. I had about 10 minutes or 10% battery popped up on this. I apologize for that one. Hope I don't lose you. But I didn't quite realize the rivalry they had with Pittsburgh, Philly. I should have. I mean, they're across state from each other. But what was the question?
Oh, initial thoughts of getting to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, so you didn't quite see something like that happening inside the division as well at that point. But then again, they had Tom Barrasso. They had two other goaltenders. I kind of had the idea that Philadelphia was doing a little bit of a shift. We're a little bit, when I mentioned that you had Peters, Hextall, and myself, there always that little bit of heavy side on the goaltending. So you knew that was going to be thinned out, and that was a great opportunity to go to Pittsburgh. And then when you roll in everything that did happen, it was a lot to go into it. There was it Coffee in that one? There was Mark Recchi, Rick Tocchet, Shel Samuelson, and I always joke that I got thrown in for whatever. But I've talked to Craig Patrick, and he made some pretty big trades at the trade deadline. And sometimes these packages come together, and in their own little ways, they all work out. And I think for Pittsburgh, it accomplished the goal that they were looking to do. They did that with a big trade, but Ronnie Francis here before, and to get Tocchet and Shel Samuelson, just to fit a couple more pieces was big for a 4-round series coming up. Ravin with Tocchet.
So, thoughts on hoisting the cup?
Thoughts on hoisting the cup? What an honor to have that opportunity, that chance again. Like that Dirk Evers said to me, this is stuff you dream about when you're a kid. And all those times you thawed your feet out on the heating unit from being frozen in a snowbank with a bunch of kids playing in the snow, pitch black with just the street lights moving the net, and to have that chance to run around and look at your friends on the ice and look at the sacrifice. For me, it wasn't till my niece, I should say, my brother's daughter Paige moved out from Edmonton to Toronto on a field trip. Went to the Hockey Hall of Fame and have a picture of her, pointing at the Wregget name. And I'm back in Pittsburgh, and I get this on my phone. I think that's when you really realize what you really did do. Like the rest of it, you've grown up playing this game, this fun thing, and this challenging thing that's been very rewarding and has brought you so much pleasure and joy and tears and sweat and hardship and then to see how much that means to your family is second to none for me. Anyways, I thought that was special.
Ed, question for Ken.
So Ken, I'm going to kind of jump a little bit ahead. What do you think of the goalie equipment now that they have versus the gear that you had when you played?
I think everything's in pretty much respective. Nowadays, everything's very, very protective, and you have to be. The shots are harder, they're faster, they're quicker, they're more lateral. They come from everywhere. They go off the side of the head. Back then I had this open, that open. He'd come up with big wells and stuff. But they if you had that openness back then with how hard they shoot them back now, it would kill you. You couldn't do it. So I think everything's keep everything's perspective. It's relative, and I think that's what builds the hockey player and who you are. I mean, there's some great video out there nowadays of guys doing what they're doing, and people from outside of the hockey world look at how these guys battle and what they go through and spitting teeth out and stuff like that. But that's when you play hockey and you play enough hockey, you start to understand that a little bit.
Tom, question for Ken.
Sure. We actually interviewed one of your 92 teammates, Peter Taglianetti, a couple of weeks ago, and he had some good Mario Lemieux stories. What was it like for you as a goalie to practice with him every day?
When I got traded from Philadelphia, I thought that was interesting. I told you the story coming from Toronto. I hadn't played in a month, so I wasn't doing very well. But I felt coming over from Philadelphia, I was playing well, and this is gonna be good. I'm playing good. I'm feeling good. I'm some of this new team. Get on the ice with Mario. All of a sudden, all you hear is boom, boom, boom. Hit the bucket in the back of the net. Like I thought I was playing pretty good, but I guess I was wrong. But yeah, it's and then when you look around the locker room, it's like walking into an all-star team, like all these good guys, and you're filling in Tockett and Shell, which was one of my favorite roommates all along the way too. And it's just been an honor, and just to have this privilege to play with these guys and these teams in this league, and the whole 9 yards here.
Ken, I gotta ask you as a uber hockey nerd, if I made a top 10 list of goalie masks all-time favorites, you have one. The one with the penguin on it
Yeah.
is an absolute beast of a mask. I love the concept. I love the out of the box thinking when it comes to goalie masks. I hate just the copy and paste. You put the team logo on it with the name of the team. I like the unique stuff. I like the take that you had with the Danny DeVito penguin from the Batman movie at the time. Fantastic. I want to know why you stopped wearing it.
Well, I got traded. No, I think that one there. Why I stopped wearing it wasn't really CSA approved. The reason why I wore that SK600 is because it's light, and I wouldn't get into a helmet. They sent me back home that summer with the mask, well, not my helmet, not my hybrid, and that was heavy. But I did it. But when I got back out there, I put the other one back on, back down. And then they were on me pretty good about, because it's not safe at all. It wasn't safe. So they talked me into it. They gave me this light mask that was made out in Denmark. I know the specs and all this. I just don't have the full backstory off the top of my head right now. But it wasn't CSA approved. It was made of fiberglass or Kevlar. So it was not sturdy. It got softer and softer. So it started not being very protective. So it was actually going that direction. So we kind of retired that, and it's in the Hockey Hall of Fame. And Sal Catchy's the guy that painted that. They wanted me to wear it, and they came to this mask and everything. And I said, yeah, I like it. They came up with a design. I said, well, I don't know what design is. It looked pretty cool. And they said, yeah. So I said, okay, let's do that. We did that. We're worrying about copyright infringements. And that didn't happen. So what we did was because it was always getting so much notice, we actually did some replicas. Greg Bray did the master. They're fiberglass. Each one's hand molded, so each one's unique. And then Tempe Moore painted them. She pastel painted them. They clear coated them. They're a work of art. They're heavy and they're nice. And we brought them out to St. Jude and to the Penguins Gala. And just sell them off not sell them off, to auction them off for charity and stuff. So we've been doing that with these ones, it was just pretty, it's coming good to help out the community and to help out charity. So that's been nice. And then Sal Catchy, the guy who painted it, he calls me up one day, and I thought, oh, here's one guy I can never get a hold of. And we're worried about royalties and all that, but we're selling them for charity. Hope he's understanding. So this guy's the greatest guy in the world. Here he works. He lives in Buffalo. Worked for a motorcycle shop. Was painting bikes. Made a mask for Darren Fupa. Went for myself. I think maybe Tommy won brass. And this one made the Hall of Fame. So he's wondering when I was going to bring it back because he knew it pulled it out to make these replicas for charity. I said, tell him nothing to worry about. We brought it back. It's on display right now because that was his little claim to fame. So whenever he comes by Pittsburgh, he's going to get together. We have a restaurant. He's going to come by and say hi and probably take some pictures and stuff. So it's all been a great experience straight from that mask.
Ed, question for Ken.
I'm going to say, what was your favorite building to play in? Was it Maple Leaf Gardens or was it the Spectrum or?
I like playing a lot of these older ones. Boston Gardens was really nice because of the shape. You had to get used to them. The smaller neutral zone. Toronto, like I said, with those hockey gods, again, that was more egg-shaped, and the way it bounced out, that was unique, and it just had that flavor. A lot of these older buildings, Chicago Stadium, playing my first playoff game there. That was a first round best of 5 too. We won 3 straight. they had a big pipe organ at the one end, and they'd play the national anthem. The crowd would be standing up screaming. You couldn't hear anything. They dropped the puck. All you could see is Chicago pull it forward. Their winger dumped it in. Other wingers going on it. Our defenseman turned around and I'm trying to yell to him, man, on you. I can't even hear myself yelling because the fans are yelling. It's just these older rinks are just also great in their own little unique way. Sit behind the poles, and they weren't laid back so much. They're on top of each other. Like the second rounds, you hear horror stories, but they were pretty interesting.
Tom, question for Ken.
Sure. Did your game day preparation change once you hit the playoffs, or did you try to keep it the same?
I think I probably tried to keep it the same. When you're playing and things are going well, I always tried to keep things the same, and then if they're going on just not well for long enough, then you start to change things. But usually you get back in groove, and as you do, you tend to take notice of what you're doing, and you may change, but you just want to do things that you feel good, and so sometimes a repetition is a feeling of comfort. You don't like stepping outside your comfort zone. Maybe that's the psychology about it, but yeah, I always like staying the same.
So Ken, you're in Pittsburgh for a good run, and then how did you end up leaving Pittsburgh to finish with Calgary?
Yeah, I was in Pittsburgh. I was actually on a no trade, and I knew I was coming towards the end of my career. And I'd mentioned earlier my dad in the Air Force in Cold Lake, Alberta, up by Edmonton, and my brother was gonna. We're all thinking of retiring. We're both thinking of retiring out in Calgary. So, and it just so happened I got the option if I wanted to go to Calgary, they're going to get trade, Pittsburgh get something back, and then I was kind of somewhat thinking about that. They knew I was from out west. I knew I may consider it. He was right, and I waived the no trade, and that's where I went. But apparently, I was supposed to go to Nashville with the expansion that year too, which that would have been fun. That would have definitely been a different direction for me right there. But had that been a little bit earlier in my career, probably would have jumped on that. But even still.
So when you're in Calgary, how long did you know that it was time to start winding it down?
Well, I didn't really. I ended up playing half the season. I had a back injury and missing half the season. I think I came back after the All-Star break. It was an awful year. Went through I think about 8 goaltenders, young, straight out of junior, guys that weren't ready. Al Coates, the general manager, he was ready to hang me because at one point I was ready to go. I was going down to I think have my first practice, and they had a table. They had a table in the dressing room of jerseys, and I was just signing them. And then as I signed them, I was bent over. Someone said something, called me, said something. I turned around like that, and I squeezed the disc out, and it went out that easy. So now I'm out for another. I don't know how long that was, but yeah, it was just. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I rehab. They said I didn't rehab it fully before I got back on it from my first injury. And I think as we went along and went to Calgary was a good thing because they did a lot for sports medicine. They were able to help me where I don't think I would. I don't think I spent enough time rehabbing it when I was here in Pittsburgh to get back on the ice for playoffs.
So the transition from hockey life to retirement life, did you find it tough at first, or were you ready for it?
I think I was ready for it. I was the guy that when I was in Toronto, I used to, live over in by Square One and then go across the city to work out at Bally's in Markham during rush hour because I always felt like I was going to be working after I was done playing hockey. So I tried to get myself ready. I took some real estate courses, took some accounting courses. I was able to put some of the courses together to get my high school diploma, because I didn't get that playing hockey because I moved around and I didn't focus. I just focused on hockey. But yeah, it's I don't know.
Ed, question for Ken.
Well, Ken, tell us about your restaurant, and were there any restaurants out on the road that you kind of brought into your restaurant that you're like, I had this at this one place and I brought this into my restaurant. So tell us about your restaurant. Tell us, what it's all about.
Yeah, well, thank you. We have 31 Sports Bar and Grill. It's located in Collier Township on Washington Pike. We've been there 12 years now. We're an entertainment venue. We do a lot of local bands. We have really good food. We went from we knew during COVID we had to focus on our food, so we went and put a heavy weight and heavy priority on making good food for ourselves and for our customers to come in. And we have great burgers, great salads. If you come in, we're famous for our rolls. I tried to, you asked me about maybe taking foods from around the different cities and stuff. I'd love to take a Montreal hot dog. I'd like to take a Philly cheesesteak. I'd like to take all these different things and bring them in, but they're never going to do that as good as they do in those cities. Although we do have poutine, and I think this side of the border we do a very, very good job, and one of the most authentic ones. We don't necessarily mix it up, but we can mix it up with corned beef if you want. If you want to go down that path. So we try to be open. So we try, when you come to our place, to try to give you a good experience, good service, good waitresses, good food, good friends, good times. That's it. Try to keep it simple.
Good stuff.
Tom, as we start winding it down with Ken, last question from you.
Sure. Who do you have a head coach that you played for that you think helped you more than others?
I think I had really good coaches all along the way, and when I say that, even growing up as a 10-year-old, Dave Dill, one of the first coaches I had, just teaching the basic fundamentals of hockey. Al Pickering, the fundamentals of hockey. When you get to that age, 10, 11 years old, 12, 13, you start to move into systems. You start to learn sportsmanship. And then just confidence building. Wayne McPherson, who was a general manager, about confidence building, just always believing, always staying good. Moving off into junior hockey, John Chapman, he would relate his hockey to life experiences. And would you let this happen to you in life? Like if this hockey situation, someone's trying to take advantage of you, are you gonna let that happen to you, or are you gonna step in and take care of this guy and or take control of this situation? How you can do this in life, you got to do this. So you kind of start to learn about both of them. John Brophy, not really a player's coach. Very tough, very much of a disciplinarian. Taught you how to work hard, work ethic, to focus, dedicate yourself, run through a brick wall, not to question. Then you go through Scotty Bowman, the best coach. I realized how much a coach meant to a team to be successful, to win the Stanley Cup, and how many times he's done that, and to see how he's brought people together. He's put a whole line of defensemen out there as a starting lineup, and watch the other coach squirm because he didn't know what to do because he had home ice advantage in the playoffs. Just turned guys inside out just from knowing the game and being smart and outthinking them or making other people think. So yeah, I think I've had a lot of good coaches along the way, and I think I've had a lot of good support, and I think that's a good life lesson that we all can learn, is to really surround yourself with some good people, and And if you do that, then you all take care of each other, I think, and you'll have the same goals, and you'll help each other. Because it takes, Lord knows, it takes all of us to working together to get to where we want to go.
Absolutely. So, Ken, I usually start winding down the end of the episode when I ask this question. If you had to describe your hockey journey in one word, what would it be?
Fulfilling.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So for all the fans that haven't seen you in a while, Flyers fans, Calgary fans, Toronto fans, people know you in Pittsburgh. Do you have a way for them to get a hold of you? Maybe to send an email or reach out to you to get something signed? How do they go about doing that?
You could use our restaurant email or social media platform and message me. And that would be 31 Sports Bar and Grill. And if we have social media people on them are usually pretty good, and I look at that every day and I answer that and I respond as well. So please take a look at us online to find out our specials, what's going on, and we like to put a little spoofy TikTok on there every now and then. We just did another one today, so go online and view them up and say hello. And if you're ever in the area, I'd love to see you. 31 Sports Bar and Grill.
I can attest to that. That's how I got a hold of you. That's how I did it. So it works for the people that think you're pulling their string. It works. That's how we got a hold of you.
Yeah, and she gets back quickly too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I got to say it at the end of the show, Ken Wregget, friend of the show, everybody.
Friend of the show. No, I'd like to say hi to everybody. Thank you for letting me share my hockey experiences. Sorry if I got long-winded and got lost along the way, but maybe we can keep on going another time.
Oh yeah, we open door policy. We get everybody that we've had on it. It's been pretty much all positive, Ken. We've made friends. I can't say how. As like I said, as a fan and grown up watching, just to connect with everybody and share Friday night and just tell stories and then make that connection to be a friend of the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, and love to talk to you guys and love to hear you guys' questions and see where your head is and to hear about hockey all over the globe. Your questions, I thought you had really good questions, and you made me think and brought me down some memorable paths. I tell you that. So,
yeah,
I can't wait to get up to Nova Scotia, see those guys, and hopefully we see you too along the way somewhere.
Absolutely, we'll stay in touch, definitely, Ken. I appreciate your time.
You too. Thank you.
Congratulations, Ken.
Okay, thank you guys.
Next weekend. Have a good one.
You too. Thank you.
Enjoy your Friday.
All right.